Okay, sorry, I accidentally stopped this. So question 28, result of the Homestead Act is going to be the creation of Indian reservations in the Southwest. Remember, the Homestead Act leads to pushing Indians out. I can see why you might be tempted to go to the rush to grab free land, because that's not necessarily incorrect. But certainly the creation of Indian reservations is the most correct one, because we talked about that correlation between the two. So that is question 28. Next we have question 29. This required you to, and remember I told you this when I wrote it on the board, that the Knights of Labor were radical and the American Federation of Labor focused on wages and working conditions, and that's why the American Federation of Labor was more successful. And so it's very easy for you to see that these both of these groups are trying to resolve a number of issues that's with the workers, right? Industrialization had created low-wage, low-skilled jobs, and workers could be replaced very easily. And so they were trying to find a way to address that, both of them. Now, the Knights of Labor were far more radical, and the American Federation of Labor focused on specific conditions. But if they could raise wages, that was going to be great. It isn't that industrialization reduces demand for workers. Yes, workers are being replaced by machines, and George Ingalls talking about that. But that doesn't mean that there's not a demand for workers. It just means there's not a demand for skilled workers. So it's a different type of worker. So I think maybe you kind of you overthought or got confused by that. The other part of it is that industrialization does lead to unsanitary living conditions, but that's not what the labor unions are trying to accomplish. So just kind of keep that in mind. That answer would have been C. The next one is going to be question 31. Big businesses grew with industrialization, but the agricultural sector, of course, is characterized by overproduction and low prices for products and debt for farmers. We talked about this with the farming simulation, right? Farming, the Homestead Act brings more farms. You have more farmers out there. You have better technology, so they're farming more efficiently, and they're producing way more than they were before. That leads to too much supply, which means to low prices. So that is the answer to number 31. Then we see that that the next question was 32. This one is, which group during the Gilded Age would have supported these policies? I think all but one class asked me about, how do I see this? This is, what box are they talking about? You would have clicked the show resource, in the bottom left corner. Boy, I'm getting confused. Bottom left corner, you would have hit show resource, and this box would have popped up. This connects directly to the populism exit ticket that you did, where I asked you to list a couple of goals from the populists. And many of you had listed one of these, and so you should have recognized any one of these characteristics were tied to the Populist Party. And obviously robber barons would not have wanted any of these things. Labor union leaders never never had a policy system, right? Labor unions advocated for a lot of things, but they didn't have a set of policies. The Populist Party, populist farmers had a definite policy that they were advocating for. And then the next most missed question is the last one, which is one way political machines gained power during the Gilded Age was by providing services to the immigrants and the poor. We talked about this when we talked about urbanization, that these poor people living in tenements weren't getting any kind of services, and so they turned to the political machine to move the dead horse from in front of their building, and they did this in exchange for votes. This leads to the corruption in politics that will ultimately end with civil service reform. So be sure that you kind of understand that. So this kind of should help you revisit how that test went, help you see what maybe you did wrong. And for those of you that have the opportunity to do some to redo some things, this should help you with that as well. That's it.